Hey toy fans, Aaron here. Today taking a look at the internet exclusive of the Vintage Collection 41st Elite Corps Clone Trooper. So let's head to that table and check this one out. Quick look at the packaging, and as I mentioned, this is the Vintage Collection card. So you get that classic Star Wars logo, Revenge of the Sith in there. Great image of the Clone Trooper on Coruscant, which is where we saw him in Revenge of the Sith. And of course, through the bubble, you see the figure with included accessories. On the back side, top half, well, upper right corner actually, VC145 for his number in the lineup. You got a refresh of images here of other figures that are also available in the line. And these are due out relatively soon, I believe. Off on the right side, nothing new with the write-up here. Just talking about celebrating the legacy of Star Wars. And bottom half, still all your legal information. Taking a look at him out of the packaging. And for starters, this is a much-needed update to the release that we received in 2013 on the Black Series line. Throwing them up next to each other here on the right side being that original release. And you can see the biggest differences here is that the gray paint is applied much more accurately to his armor, whereas much of it was sorely missing on the original release. I should actually say for the international market, they did do a re-release of that Black Series figure, giving him a better paint job and also giving him some scoring marks. I don't have that one to show. I only have the original US release in my possession. Aside from that, the sculpting of the main body, the arms, the legs, all are identical. Head sculpting between the two figures is identical. Only differences here is that this new release does get the photoreal face painting technology. As for the helmet, there are some differences between these two releases. Most notably, the newer one does have blue lines running along the chin of the helmet, whereas the older one had the gray lines. Not sure which is accurate. And a little less noticeable is the size of the helmet. This newer one is just a touch shorter and also doesn't flare out as much on the sides. So it is just a little bit more in proportion to the figure. But some sacrifices are made with that. As you can see, his chin is now showing at the bottom of the helmet. Focusing in just on this figure, and as I mentioned, he does have the photoreal face painting technology this time around. And my initial thoughts were that things were looking pretty good. Lips are a little too red, but, pretty borderline on that. As I was reviewing the footage, though, his left eye kind of looks a little dead, screen right eye as you're looking at it. And maybe his right eye is just up a little bit. But I gotta say, that's shooting with my camera and macro, and holding the figure in my hands, it certainly wasn't noticeable. Something like that, as I like to say, is probably going to vary figure to figure also. When he's got the helmet on, like I said, this fit is a little bit tighter this time. Sculpting looks good, but I do wish it extended farther down. I don't like that chin peeking through the bottom center of the helmet. Otherwise, painting is looking exactly like you expect to see. Nice black line running around the top of the helmet. Some gray in there also off to the sides. Some touches of black over the, let's call it the ears. Black visors looking good. As for the main body, great armor sculpting. Everything looking like you would expect it to be. You get the gray painted around his shoulders. Nice little wear to that gray also. It's not freshly, it's not a fresh paint job. Gray lines around the arms are painted pretty nice. Even some stripes there on the forearm. Some calm detailing also in there. Through the chest itself, not the best paint job of the lines, at least on my figure. A little off the mark here. You got one on the right side, your screen right side, I should say, in a little further from the edge than it is on your left side. That could certainly be something that varies figure to figure. On the back side, got some armor detailing in there. And this is something that varied from trooper to trooper, especially within that scene. A lot of them had different accessories on their back. Some had antennas, some didn't, some had some canisters. So I'm pretty okay with what we have here. I do notice something a little funky going on with his armor, and that's on the bottom edge of the right side as you're looking at it on the screen. Seems to extend farther down, like it needed to be sanded off more or something. It does extend a little bit farther down as you're looking at it from the front, which is now on your left side as you're looking at it, but it's not as noticeable, so I'm not sure what that's about. At least from the front, it isn't looking as bad. This time around, got the gray painting in the center of the stomach, and you got a gray belt to go along with it. Good sculpting for that. And then getting into the legs of the figure, everything looking like you would expect Clone Trooper armor to look like. Gray lines are painted in pretty nice here. Some nice texturing for the uniform underneath the armor pieces, that black undersuit as you see it. And for the lower leg armor, we got some gray painted in as it should be. Right along the front edges of that armor, some nice little wear painted in also, or some white showing through. So I like that little added detail, matches up with the shoulders on the top of the figure. And then finishing off around the feet, a little bit of dirt painted in there maybe, some yellow or something at the bottom of the soles. And then this time around, that hinge for the ankles is white instead of black. So it's nice to see that change there. For the articulation, that head's just on a ball joint. So of course you get your swiveling, you get a little bit up and down, just a tiny bit side to side, not much there. Both shoulders swivel. And they hinge out about 45 degrees. You're not getting quite straight out there. The shoulder pieces do tuck in underneath a little bit, but eventually they get in the way. Elbows come up past 90 degrees. And you get some swiveling in there, but you're not going all the way around because of the elbow pads. They do extend out and get in the way, but I think realistically you're getting the movement that you want. Each of the wrists swivel around. That right hand has some side-to-side articulation, while the left hand goes up and down. Great range of motion at the waist, giving you some swiveling, plenty of crunching forward and back, and some good range side to side. The legs split out, and they pivot at the hinge going into the hip. Legs bend pretty much 90 degrees, giving you a good seated position, and also they swivel right in there at the top of that joint. Ankle swivels, that foot hinges back pretty far, and you got some pretty good forward movement also. And not counting the helmet, he does come with a single accessory, or I guess two if you want to count the helmet, but he comes, of course, with a blaster. This is the same sculpt that we received on that Black Series release, so things sculpt-wise are looking good. Nice detailing to it. Certainly looks like a Clone Trooper blaster should look. Differences here, though, is on that original release, you had a touch of silver and gold detailing to it for some paint. And in this case, we're not getting any of that applied here. And on both hands of the figure, there is a trigger finger extended out, so it does work well either way. So overall, for me, this is a great update to a figure that certainly needed it, especially since the corrected figure did not hit where I live. Still, some of the painting missed the mark, especially those lines on the side of the chest. But as I mentioned earlier, that is something that certainly could vary figure to figure. And while I'm glad that the helmet is just a little bit smaller, so it feels a little bit more in proportion, I just wish they'd figure out a way to cover the chin of the figure underneath. So for me, this is still a great purchase and a worthy upgrade. And so that wraps up this look at the Clone Trooper. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this figure in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.